So a couple of games against Eastern Canada teams. The game against Montreal, that the Jackets, for the most part, played well enough to win again, and didn't have the stamina to finish out in the last couple minutes of the game. And then a game against Ottawa that they did win. Um, same kinds of comments that I have been having. You wonder about it being a conditioning issue when the Jackets have difficulty staying in the very end of games. You mean that just happens sometimes because, you know, the game isn't over, the other team has time. But when this keeps happening, then you can look and see if this is a conditioning issue. Under Tortorella, Tortorella was widely described by old players for his extremely strenuous conditioning. And I bet you Brad Larson didn't do any of that. Brad Larson didn't seem to do that much. I wonder what the conditioning is like under Pascal Vincent. This is not something that the players are gonna. The players probably could, like somebody like Johnny Gaudreau or Sean Corrali could tell you based on the different places that they've played what the conditioning looks like for different regimes. But Pascal Vincent is new as a head coach. We don't know how strenuous his conditioning looks like. I I think his people management seems to be pretty good, but maybe he is not sufficient on the conditioning. I don't know. Maybe this problem will eventually just resolve itself. Um, Another thing, speaking of things that will potentially resolve itself. Well, so we had these rumors about Dmitry Voronkov and Yegor Chinakov um, wanting to wanting out of Columbus. Both of these players have come out and said, "Nah, that's not what we want," which is what they're going to say, no matter what, whether it's true or not. Dmitry Voronkov said, "Okay, I want to talk to my family. I changed my mind." Yegor Chinakov kind of said, what that's not what I'm focused on right now." That's obviously what they're supposed to say. And I looked from reading articles about this. Yes, Yegor Chinakov does have arbitration rights when he becomes an RFA. He still does that. This team still will control him through arbitration. And again, Yegor Chinakov playing well. Hopefully, this kind of problem just disappears when the team starts winning. A lot of these sort of complaints about playing time and stuff evaporate when teams start winning. Um, and they've given some signs that they're playing well. Like against Montreal, they played well except for the end of the game. But overall, they played well enough to win that game. Um, and they have been playing well, at least to keep themselves in games um, for the past week and a half or so. And then Ottawa looked pretty good. They come back against Ottawa after looking like maybe this is going to be another laugher. And in the past two games, also scoring coming from Patrick Laine. So I'm gonna spend most of this time talking about Patrick Laine because a lot of rumors around Patrick Laine. What's going to be done with Patrick Laine? Is it time for the team to trade him and move on? Is he justifying his $8 million contract? Well, the answer to just justifying his $8 million contract looks like it's no right now. But I think that if you've been following my videos, which I'm sure nobody is doing, uh, Patrick Laine is his play has been a lot more up and down, a lot more complicated than a lot of the media coverage that doesn't follow the Jackets very closely has indicated. He was really good before he went down with that concussion with that very bad Rasmus Anderson hit. He was playing very well before that. He was playing pretty well defensively and being engaged in all phases of the game. I saw him make I mean, does he get beat defensively sometimes? Yes, but the I saw him make some very good defensive plays, have some good defensive stick work, um, using his feet and his body to break up uh, opposing rushes on a number of occasions, and he's done that also since returning, but he did more of that faster and better before he got injured. And this has been an issue throughout Patrick Laine's career. You've seen flashes of him having excellent defensive play, as I've seen that in the past years that I've been watching him on a night in night out basis in Columbus, and he had this issue in Winnipeg also when I didn't watch him on a night in night out basis. But you watched him occasionally. I don't get a sense of how people play in the same way. But Patrick Laine is not a terrible defensive forward, and he never was, at least not in the time that he's been in Columbus. And he's been significantly more up and down. There are times when Patrick Laine looks really, really good, and then there are times when Patrick Laine looks average to mediocre. And average to mediocre is good enough to be playing in the NHL. Like, he doesn't look like he's out of place, but he probably is out of place with respect to having an $8 million contract. And again, I wonder about conditioning. There's a time when I would have said, well, Patrick Laine is sort of a player that sometimes has this engagement, this emotional, mental engagement with the game. And sometimes he's really on top of it, and sometimes he's not so much. But I wonder about the conditioning as well. Having an injury, being off, not playing for several weeks because of the concussion can do that to you. But that amount of time, he could be tired. He looks like he's slower. That's the thing, right? Why would you, why does he look slower? So that's why I think it's conditioning and stamina. I don't know that, but I wonder about that. And if Patrick Laine can work harder more of the time, he can really be the player that that he's expected to be, a 30 goal plus scorer. He's still been scoring goals, right? A goal for Laine in each of the last two games, and people are still very upset about him. And I get it a little bit, but I don't think people are watching the way that Patrick Laine is playing and watching the details of his game. And Patrick Laine has had a lot of comments about the details of his game, and Pascal Vincent and other people saying, like, I need to be better at the details. I need to be doing more things, which of course is what he should say. But if you look at the way that this guy's playing, again, does he get beat sometimes? Yes, he gets beat sometimes defensively. I mean, everybody's going to get beat sometimes defensively, but I think that the way that he's playing, the way that he plays really strong defensively sometimes is not understood by the people who are calling for the team to trade him and writing media articles about, is Patrick Laine done? Um, People do understand that Patrick Laine is an inconsistent player, but they understand that by looking at his goal production output, because that's an easy stat to look at. Sometimes he's really on top of his game and scores lots of goals, and then sometimes he has a weak streak. Maybe not even as streaky though as Jack Roslovic. I think Patrick Laine plays a lot more consistently, a lot with a lot more energy night in night out than Jack Roslovic has ever done. Um, but that being still, you could still see more of a consistent output from him. And I wonder about conditioning. Good win against Ottawa. Frustrating loss against Montreal, but the team played pretty well. Elvis has looked, you know, average to good. Adam Boqvist. Adam Boqvist very disappointing. I've always thought that Adam Boqvist is a better player than what he has shown us in Columbus, and I have a feeling that this team is going to move on from Adam Boqvist, and he's going to go right back to being a, a skillful offensive defenseman somewhere else. I have a feeling that that's what's going to happen. Maybe I'm just wrong, and maybe Adam Boqvist has just lost too many steps. But I've really liked Adam Boqvist's game for a long time, and I've been generally okay with the way the team has handled him because he hasn't been playing well. He's been, in on offensive attacks from sometimes. I've seen him make defensive plays sometimes. But overall, you need more from this player, and it wouldn't be unreasonable for the team to say that Adam Boqvist has not earned his time in the lineup. Certainly Andrew Peeke hasn't earned that time either, but if Severson gets back, then you can have Werenski and Provorov are the team's best defensemen, Severson and Bean, and then Juracek and Goodbranson. All of these guys are more deserving to play right now than Adam Boqvist, and probably so is Nick Blankenberg as a depth guy. And Andrew Peeke, as far as I'm concerned, can be wiped off the face of the earth. His skating is terrible. He has no assets other than his size, and that's not enough. But Adam Boqvist being in that sort of that last role, the seventh defenseman role, I mean they can keep him there and try and see what he does, but uh, at some point it may be time to move on from Boqvist and acknowledge that this the this experiment with Adam Boqvist has not been a success, and he doesn't look like the player he was with the Chicago Blackhawks a number of years ago. We'll see if I'm right about this feeling that he's going to go somewhere else, and the change of scenery will do him some good, and perhaps being in a system where he feels more free. Although, I mean, Brad Larson didn't have much of a system, so I don't know that there's any place that he would have felt more free. Maybe being in more of a system would help Adam Boqvist. I don't know. Um, Kent Johnson coming back up. Haven't seen too much from him. He looked fine. We'll see if he looked. They wanted him to be stronger, more physical. He looked perhaps like he was a bit stronger, fighting for pucks a bit more. Um, more more time to evaluate needed. Um, Another guy that has been, I don't know, disappointing whenever I've seen him. Similar kind of issue. Trey Fix-Wolansky. Trey Fix-Wolansky, what, 5'6", maybe 5'7", I can't remember. He looks like he's uh I don't know what the organization's plans for him, because there have been times when I thought they should keep him. He's a hard worker. And then there are times when I thought he's just getting beaten all the time. He's not physical enough. Another guy I imagine they want to see be stronger. Just because you're 5'6", 5'7", I forget which one he is, doesn't mean that you can't be physical, but it makes it harder. It means you have to just work hard in order to push people around and dig for pucks, and it means that you might not be bulky enough to do so all the time, and you have to work that much harder. Fix Wolanski seems like the kind of player that can do that, but whenever we've seen him, I mean, he hasn't been playing recently. Um, I wonder about his game and where the organization expects him to be, if they still have plans for Fix Wolanski to be an integral part of the team's future or not. Because I would have expected them to have given him more chances at various points in his development above some other guys that probably don't have as much long-term value. Eric Robinson, of course, I've talked about. I hate Eric Robinson's game. But an example of a guy that probably doesn't have long-term value, who definitely is working hard enough to deserve to be where he is right now, is Justin Danforth. Danforth is, the epitome of a guy who's sort of been a journeyman who got out of it and established a role in the lineup by working really hard. But Justin Danforth's game doesn't really have long-term upside, and I don't think that the organization sees him as being a a building block or anything like that over the course of the next 3 to 4 years, and that's probably the window they're targeting for when they feel like they can really be strongly competitive. I'm not saying that the team isn't going to be more competitive next year. They probably, they should be. Um, but it makes sense to be looking at 3 years from now and saying, okay, that is the window we're targeting right now for our team to be really strong. Is Justin Danforth, who's going to be like 31 or something like that at that time, going to be part of that team? Probably not. Does he deserve to be playing? Yes, but he deserves to be a role player. And as of he's a role model of what you can do if you work hard. Okay, fine. But that's not really the same thing as veteran leadership. I don't think so. Um, if I don't know if there would be other teams that would be interested in trading for somebody like Justin Danforth. He's not the most prolific offensive producer, but it's possible. It's possible that other people would look at that and see this is a player that doesn't factor into the Jackets' future so much. Can we bring in a hardworking player that will be a role player, fill in some depth scoring? The problem with that is that you're asking people, if you're not going to get a lot for a guy like Justin Danforth doing that. People, if you want people to bring in depth scoring, they're probably looking for players that sort of light up the stat sheet a bit more than Justin Danforth. No tremendous disrespect to Justin Danforth, but he isn't. Maybe over a full season he can be a 20-goal scorer, but I think 10 to 15 is more likely. Eric Robinson, if somebody wants that as their depth scoring, they're welcome to have Eric Robinson. And then there's a lot of other prospects that are part of the team's plans down the line. Jordan Dumais, I've been reading a lot about, keeps on scoring in junior, so encouraging. But keeping on scoring in junior doesn't mean that you're going to be a tremendous player at the AHL or NHL level. But not a bad thing that he keeps on scoring in junior. I'm not going to talk too much about those guys because I haven't really watched them play. All right. They play today at who do they play? I forgot. Oh, they play in Boston, who they beat last time. We'll see if they can do it again.